It's Sue from Aging Joyfully. I hope everyone is going to have a great 2026. 2025 was a little bit challenging, wasn't it? We hope that 2026 can get a little bit better, right? Right? This video is going to be a little bit different than our usual one, but it is a topic in the news. Estrangement. The topic is estrangement. I just found out that an estranged friend of mine passed away 7 months ago. When Steve and I have moved around quite a bit with his career, at one point we lived in Alabama and it was an extremely wealthy, affluent area. It was the peak of Steve's career. If you look at Social Security statistics, you'll see that you make your peak income in your 40s. Typically after that, people are laid off and their income goes down. Some people are lucky enough to survive that, but the way things have been going 2025, there's been thousands and thousands of layoffs. So it's going to probably hold up for quite a while. But we were at the peak of our income. We lived in a very nice area, and what I found was I was very, very lonely because you just assumed everybody had money. What I learned later is that many of them were just pretending. They had tremendous stress. We found people sneaking out in the middle of the night. It was around the dot-com bust, followed by 9/11. Steve actually lost his job in that time period, in that time frame, and we moved away. But at the time, everybody acted like they had so much money. They were acting snobbish, not friendly at all. They were most likely stressed out because they were pretending to be something they weren't. They were living beyond their means, putting on fronts, and I saw a lot of the women were alcoholics while we lived there. I just did not make a lot of friends, and it was a lonely time. At one point, we had some Mormon missionaries come in and talk to us, and I remember, I believe it was 2 males. They came into our house and they said, "Can I pray for you?" And I said, "Yes, you can pray for me to get a friend." Right after that, my good friend moved in. I had grown up in Chicago, and she moved from Chicago, although she was from Milwaukee originally. She had moved around several times with her husband. Her husband was a physician who had gone back to school to change from being an emergency room physician to being a dermatologist. So they were at a low point in their income because he was starting over again in dermatology. So they bought their house 100% financed, and she drove a 15-year-old Honda, and she was so much like me with her Midwestern wholesome values, down to earth, not showy. Like in the South, most women paint their nails and have their sandals and have their toenails painted, and have their jewelry and fancy clothes, whether or not they have the money to afford it. There's so much more pressure in the South to look. To appearances are more important than substance. And whereas in the Midwest, at least when I grew up, and my friend, substance was more important than appearances. She laughed after she moved in over the summer, and when school started, she said she thought it was a dress code that everybody wore the same black sandals because all the teachers had the exact same black sandal. It was very big to copy everybody's clothing. You couldn't be unique or be yourself. So she had been valedictorian of her high school, very intelligent. At this point, she was staying at home to raise her 2 boys, and I was at home raising our 2 kids. And we just had so much in common. I'm part Norwegian. She was half Norwegian. I'm a quarter Norwegian. She was half Norwegian. And we clicked. We became best friends. I was like, wow, my prayers were answered by those Mormons who came to our door. We were good friends, and then one day she just quit talking to me. I have no idea why. And everybody thought it was odd because everybody saw us together, always together. We would even run into each other at the mall, and it was always the same store, the conservative store of J.C. Penney's, usually looking at clothes for our children. So we would run into each other at the same store, and we crossed paths at school. Our oldest sons were in the same grade, I think even the same teacher. I think we met because they were both attending the same Bible school, which was at the Catholic Church. I put my kids in 3 Bible schools every summer, Catholic, Baptist, and either Methodist or Lutheran, to expose them to different religions, to help them learn, to accept everybody. So I would find multiple churches. There were no synagogues or mosques or anything different. Plenty and plenty of churches in the Bible Belt, so I'd put them in 3 Bible schools, and I would generally work in them. They loved to have helpers, even though I never attended those churches. I would work, and they would go, and I would see the differences in the different religions. So when we had the first falling out, she never said why she quit talking to me, just quit talking. I remember when I first met her, it was right before 9/11. And Steve was flying that day, and I was so scared. And I tried to call her, and she never answered her phone. And this was when you had landlines. So you definitely heard it ring. I called her all throughout the day to get her support, and she never answered. Well, I learned that she was a very independent loner. Even though she was personable when she wanted to be, she was a loner and very independent and very in control. So she never answered the phone that day. So when she did quit talking to me and never told me why, all the other moms noticed, because they saw how we had always been together, always ran into each other, and they saw that she wasn't talking to me. Well, after running into her so many times, she did start opening up again. We became good friends again. I mean, I wondered why, but I don't know. I didn't really want to know, like, what did I do wrong? Like, why? Well, first of all, if you said one thing, I don't know, a true friend isn't somebody who drops you when you say one wrong thing. You forgive, or you talk about it, or say you hurt my feelings, or whatever. You don't just end the relationship, right? I wouldn't. I mean, I would say, you really hurt my feelings. And when it was just one incident, not a pattern of things, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, we were friends. We moved away to Pennsylvania, and we couldn't sell our house, so she did keep an eye on our house, and we did go back. We went back a few times, and then after it sold, we actually went back again, and we called, and we still maintained our friendship through different states. Well, then the Great Recession hit, and he lost his job. But then we were living in Georgia. We had gone to Pennsylvania, New York, and then back to Georgia. And I called her one night, and I just happened to say that, hey, moving to Pennsylvania, we moved to a very, very rural, poor area of northeast Pennsylvania, which is very different, opposite of Alabama. A lot of alcoholism. Both had that in common, but that was low-income alcoholism, whereas the other one was high-income alcoholism, which for some reason seems like society accepts it more if you're rich and alcoholic versus a poor alcoholic. So I called my friend and I said, moving my kids to Pennsylvania, exposing them to poverty was actually a good thing for them after the opulence of Alabama, which I know that's surprising in itself. Because when Steve told me we're moving to Alabama, I said never. And he said, oh, it's so nice. You won't believe how nice it is here. There are some nice areas of Alabama. I told her I thought that was a great experience for our kids. I didn't want them to be elitists, snobs, like the people treated me in Alabama, and shut out people. I want them to accept all people, be open. We're all Americans. We're all in this together. And I told her that was the best thing, to expose them to a different culture, a different area. And she did not like that. She sent me an email that, to tell you the truth, I never read it. For some reason, I don't remember why, my daughter and husband read it. I don't know why, because I don't typically read my emails. But for some reason, maybe we got a new computer or something. They read this email, and it was so nasty, so cruel, that they deleted it. So I never actually saw the email. That ended our friendship. I just didn't have the energy in me because Steve had lost his job. It was now the Great Recession and I was struggling. I didn't have it in me to ask her why or try to maintain this relationship, because at the same time her husband was making a lot more money. She got a brand new BMW. They moved to a much larger house than they already had, and she was so comfortable. She could understand that my husband, who made no money, and her husband, who was making maybe $500,000 at this point, well, I didn't think it was worth it. She had become the people that we didn't like in Alabama. She became one of them. I don't think she really went to the country club and hung out with those people. I don't think she was quite to that level of elitist she did dye her hair blonde, which a lot of them do, and today most of them would get facelifts or plastic surgery, but back then it wasn't really popular to do all that. The extent was the heavy makeup, the blonde hair, and the nails were what the typical Southern woman does. So I already stood out having dark hair, not painting my nails, and not wearing heavy makeup. I stood out like a sore thumb. My friend did dye her hair blonde, but she had always been a blonde because she was half Norwegian, half Swedish. So she did continue to dye her hair white blonde because that's what she always had growing up, with her fair skin, blue eyes, and her very, very blonde hair. So I never challenged her. I just accepted it. I was too tired and worn out to try to maintain that friendship. But it broke my heart. It broke my heart. She loved our kids, especially our daughter. She spoiled our daughter rotten. She would, one time when she bought her a makeover, she was like 8 or 10 or 12, probably 10. And she gave her a makeover, which I thought was ridiculous. She really didn't look good. They put on this gaudy makeup and she looked awful. But also when she had a Build-A-Bear party that the boys weren't invited to because it was all girls, she called the store and upgraded, the kids would all build the smallest bear. She upgraded it to the most expensive stuffed animal, which my daughter earned points, and she got a ton of clothes and more stuffed animals based on those points. We still have these Build-A-Bears today. This was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. We still have many of them because she got so many Build-A-Bears and clothes that even though I've gotten rid of many of her Build-A-Bears, we have so many. And I think of her when I see these Build-A-Bears. I think of that party that she upgraded. So she liked to spend the money. She didn't really flaunt it, but she spoiled people to do things like that, to upgrade the party or give generous gifts. The one year we gave my daughter this outrageous birthday party. We ended up having, I can't remember, I think it was 35 kids because we rented 2 horses and a lot of neighbors just showed up. And this is right when we were moving to Pennsylvania, and I said, we gave our daughter a dog for her party, a live puppy, a puppy. And I said, no presents, please, just give presents to the puppy. Whatever you want to give, food or a collar, a leash. We were downsizing in our house, moving from Alabama to Pennsylvania, and our daughter was pretty spoiled. She had a lot of things, and the puppy was a present. Well, do you know when you tell people not to give gifts, sometimes they give you twice as many gifts? She got so many gifts, and it wasn't from all 35 because a lot of those kids were not invited. They just crashed the party. But the ones who were invited, some of them gave twice as many gifts, like my friend. She gave twice as many, feeling sorry for her that I said no gifts. And do you know when we moved to Pennsylvania, she had a second party for all the new friends in Pennsylvania? So she got a lot of gifts that year. So anyway, after my daughter and husband deleted the email, I didn't know what direction to go in, but it was clear she didn't want to be friends. She didn't want to maintain this friendship. This was what is typical today is called an estrangement. People think that's a new phenomenon, but people have always been estranged. My father and his brother were estranged for years and years. His brother was something like 12 years older, and he lived in Milwaukee, and we lived in Chicago. So the distance alone has a lot to do with it. And then often for holidays and things, it's the woman's family that you go see, not the husband's family. So they were estranged, but towards the end of his older brother's life, they did get back together and he did see him. But I did always wonder why they were estranged. It was never talked about, and maybe nobody knew why. Maybe it just happened. So Anyway, I would Google my friend's name, check on her, see what she was doing, and she would have things she did for charity once in a while, where she contributed money or went to an expensive dinner, where she went to an auction or dinner or something, and there wasn't a lot. She wasn't in. She didn't have a lot of social media, and of course, it wasn't big until, well, for our age. I don't know if it's ever been big, but it just wasn't big. So when she died, I mean, I didn't know she died. Nobody told me. There's nobody who called. I actually just got one of my premonitions, which I've talked about in the past. I have a crystal ball. An old boyfriend gave me a crystal ball because I have premonitions. I got a premonition at Christmas that something happened to her, to Google her name. And when I did, her obituary came up. And I was quite surprised. I was very surprised because she had died 7 months earlier. Her obituary really didn't say much of anything. It was written by her younger son. It was one sentence, literally one sentence. It said, what did it say? It said she died 1 month before her 70th birthday. Please leave a memory below. And that was it. Didn't say what she died from, the struggles she had, the family she had, the fact that she was valedictorian, the fact that she had moved around, that she had been a dietitian in her career, that she was a great mother, that she was a great wife. It didn't say anything. It was the saddest obituary I've ever read. And when I said that to my son, he said, "How many obituaries have you read?" And I said, "Well, in the old days when they had newspapers, you'd read them page by page, and you'd get to the obituaries just by turning the pages. And I'm always interested in history and names and how long people live, so I would read them just to see what the common names were, what they died from, how old they were, if it was more females or males." So he thought that was a little morbid, but I don't think so. It's a big part of history. If sometimes you go to cemeteries to see the same thing. If a lot of people died the same year, there was a flu epidemic or something going on. So it's not morbid. It's more historical. So I've read quite a few obituaries, and this was the saddest one I have ever read. One sentence. It didn't mention a husband, didn't mention kids, didn't mention her twin sister, her brother, or that her parents died. Didn't mention that her parents had died before her. Nieces, nephews, didn't mention anything. That was so sad. It didn't mention. Then I was very curious. So there was 2 websites, like a memory website, care website, something that I went to, and they had a few memories, not a lot. So I pieced together bits and pieces that she had cancer for several years, and it came back and didn't say what type, but she apparently passed away from cancer. And that, well, later I found her Facebook. I just never even thought to look for Facebook, but she had joined a dollhouse club or something, which I didn't know what that was. Just recently, a video popped up on my feed about a doll mom. And I watched that doll mom video, and it was a mom who wakes her dolls up like they're kids and feeds them breakfast. I mean, they can't eat, they're dolls. And then packs a lunch. And I thought, that was the saddest thing. Now, I know some people would say, you find that sad, but yet you dress your dog up in clothes and pose her and make cards. And yes, I do. I do make cards with my dog, Sammy, dressed in a dress, which some people have told me is sad. But I make them for a group called Cards of Compassion that cheers people up. So it has a purpose. A lot of people love dogs today. Dogs are taking over where people aren't having babies and don't have grandchildren. Dogs are taking over. I never thought I would be one to dress up a dog. It just sort of happened. Now Cards of Compassion no longer exists. They just went out of business around Christmas time. So I have not been making any cards, but there are other organizations who need cards. And I have enough prints right now of my pictures. I don't need to do it. I don't do it on a daily basis. It's very rare. But yes, I agree. It does seem odd. It's something I never thought I would do myself. Never in a million years. But I do like photography. I do like trying to make people happy. I do like trying to connect to people and cheer people up who are sad, sick, lonely, depressed, or whatnot. So yes, I do make that. But you treating a doll like a baby, I don't think she was doing that for anyone but herself. So I don't think it was cheering up other people. And I don't think a doll is as cute as a dog, but that's just my opinion. You comment below if you think a doll is as cute as a dog. I mean, she even herself wrote a comment on that Facebook page. She made an Easter basket for her doll. And she did put a comment that I know there's some psychosis associated with this. So she herself did question giving a doll an Easter basket filled with candy that doll can't eat. I don't give my dog candy. I don't give her foods. I don't pack a lunch. I don't give her breakfast. I mean, I give her dog food. I don't feed her. Sit her at the table like this doll mom would make, I think feed them baby food. I don't know. I was saddened that there's that extreme loneliness in our country that people are pretending that dolls are babies. I find that just extremely sad with the disconnect and lack of friends. I mean, it's been happening for years and years. The lack of friends, the disconnect, the not talking to neighbors, not knowing who your neighbors are. So anyway, seeing my friend do this, it was only maybe 3 to 4 years ago that she was doing this. I thought that is so sad. That and seeing that her husband and children weren't mentioned in the obituary, not only did she drop me as a friend, I think she dropped her husband and children. And the one reason I say that is because when I met her and her husband did have separate bedrooms, and she was the first person I met who had separate bedrooms. I mean, who has a house big enough for that? Her bedroom was upstairs and her husband's was the primary bedroom downstairs on the main level. And she said, we have separate bedrooms, but we visit. She was 34 when they got married. And he's 5 years younger, so 34 and 29. And I thought that was sad when she said they have separate bedrooms. But later, when he actually did lose his first job as a doctor, which was unusual, he got another job an hour away, and he actually got an apartment in the other city. So I don't know if they were married in name only. I mean, based on him not being in the obituary. But the sons weren't mentioned, and the one son only did one sentence, and he had said something on one of the websites that he's trying to do a better job this time of informing people of her cancer and her progress. So it just broke my heart. I thought I would have loved to have encouraged her, sent her some Sammy cards, sent her regular cards, tell her what the kids are doing, tell her how successful the kids are, tell her how they missed her through the years, how I've missed her through the years. We were such good friends. We would talk for hours and hours, and just to get mad because, I don't know, that we had no money and she had, then her husband made $500,000. I mean, I guess that's common when you get money, that you would drop somebody who was struggling. But she grew up kind of poor, lower middle class, not poor, but lower middle class, conservative, solid values. They had their needs were met, but not a lot more. So it was surprising. I mean, I wouldn't say she was obsessed with money, but she enjoyed money. She enjoyed doing things for people, spending the money, but I don't know. So I always thought being estranged that one day I would tell her what the kids are doing, tell her how they finished college and what they're doing. I always thought one day I would catch her up and let her know. I didn't know that she would die before I got the chance to do it. I've been reaching out to old friends from the past over the last 6 months to a year, and telling them what they meant to me and thanking them for things they've done. Not a whole lot. It's kind of hard to find people from the past. It's most of my friends had very common names like Smith, and you just can't find them. But the people I could find, I've reached out to thank them, to say, hey, I didn't thank you back then. I was young. Tell them what I'm doing today. I don't know. Most people think that I'm extreme, that I go that far in doing that, but I just find if you read any story in the news, they talk about the loneliness crisis in our country over and over again, how there's so many lonely people. I mean, if you're not working 2 and 3 or 4 jobs, you're stressed out about money, or you don't have money to have friends. You have to have money. When you don't have money, how do you go out to social events, go out to dinner? How do you do things? So yeah, I had a hard time. I had a hard time learning of her death, because I always thought there was a tomorrow where I could tell her everything. I am going to write to her husband and tell him that I'm sorry. And I don't know if they've been estranged themselves for 10 or 20 years. I mean, it's been about 18 years since she ended our friendship. Honestly, I don't want to offend anyone here, but I think she was probably on the spectrum and was black and white, and talking about money crossing the boundary, saying that it was good to expose our kids to seeing how other people live, was wrong in her world, or because she had gotten from low middle class to extreme wealth, that she no longer wanted to think about the struggles she had as a child. Obviously there was something from her past that bothered her in that one innocent comment. I mean, I still believe it. I still believe it's great to expose our kids to different religions, backgrounds, social, economic, diverse people. I still think it's very critical to expose them to that. And I don't think anybody's better than anybody. I don't think she's better than me because her husband made $500,000. So like I said, this is a different video. I guess the point would be, if you know anyone, if anybody's estranged in your life, even if it's their fault, drop them a letter, drop them a line, whatever, and then know you did everything you could. I mean, I never followed up after that email, so I don't feel like I did everything I could do. She never reached out after the email. When she got sick, she never reached out. She'd been sick for years. So I think personally I would have reached out if I had cancer. I would reach out to people to resolve the issue, or say I was wrong, or maybe not that, but just to reach out and say, hey, I miss you, or we had a good friendship, or what's going on, just something. Once she got sick, I would have done that. But apparently it seems like no one really knew. They didn't even have a service, a funeral or memorial or anything. I think that was actually maybe the second line of the obit. It said there'll be a service later in the future and we'll update you here, and there was no update, so I don't think they ever even had the memorial. She was cremated. Instantly, which most people are doing, and that's what I want to do. I had said to my kids, I probably won't have a service. When you move around so many times, you don't have all your friends in the place you live. We have friends throughout the country and family throughout the country, but I said, there'll probably be no service for me. I want to be cremated. I made a video on that showing the box, the urn. It's a wooden urn that I want to be put in, and I just want good memories. I don't expect people... I mean, I know people won't spend thousands of dollars to travel to a memorial. And I guess that's what she knew too, but I think she pushed most people out of her life. I do remember when I was friends with her, she didn't have a lot of friends. She seemed to stay up half the night, shopping on eBay, and then sleeping in the morning. So I guess that's part of her loneliness because she was always shopping every single night on eBay. My son told me later he thought she resold the things. I don't know if you could buy things on eBay and resell them. You pay shipping and handling. I thought she was buying them for herself. I don't really know. I don't really know. But hope I haven't made you too sad. It's just pointing out to me that anybody you want to thank or acknowledge or talk to, you do it today because there may not be a tomorrow. There may not be a tomorrow. Hope everybody's doing well. You're safe, happy, healthy, and going to have a great new year. And hopefully Steve will be here next time. He is sleeping because he's tired with his new job. He got a physical job after he lost his job in July of 2025. But he is doing great. And until we see you again, take it easy.